All right. So today, or I guess for the part two, we had questions 1 and 2. So question 1 reads, why did selection favor both older, why did selection favor both older large birds and younger small birds? So to look at the first half, we'll talk about the older, larger birds and just the larger birds in general. So the older birds had well, first of all, the larger birds needed more seeds or more food to survive because they were bigger. So they required more energy, more food. So that means they have to obviously consume more seeds to meet their needs. And this was fine for the older large birds because their beaks were fully developed, so they could crush all the big seeds and eat those. But while the younger older bird, or the bigger younger birds, their beaks weren't quite developed yet, so they couldn't actually crush the seeds, or they crush the part of the seeds, the nut, so they could get at the seed.
Mm.
And so therefore they're at that disadvantage because they needed lots of food, but yet they couldn't get lots of food because they couldn't crush the nuts to get the seeds.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, the younger small birds were favored in this selection just because, although they were younger, because of their small bodies and things, they actually were able to live off of the small seeds that they were able to gather. And so, because both younger birds would be kind of feeding off of seeds, those smaller younger birds would actually be able to live better off of they would be able to actually fill their diet needs. Um, and so the second question that we had, question 2, is if females select for black plumage, why are there any brown birds? So the reason that there are brown birds is that there's obviously an advantage for brown plumage in some way. And so the way that Jason and I had discussed was that brown birds, this is a great example of what we learned last week as intrasexual selection.
Mm-hmm. And so I was going to intrasexual selection is like usually the males competing against each other. And so the brown bird advantage is that they weren't really noticed by all the other finches around, or birds. So they kind of flew under the radar, allowed them to set up their nests, their territories for mating season, so they could actually have a spot to attempt to attract a mate, even though they were brown. And at least in this advantage, it allowed them to at least get set up so they could at least attract a mate, while the black ones had to compete the whole time for both setting up their nests and territories. So that was their advantage the brown plumage had. So
Mm-hmm.